Mary's in the waiting room.
I just let her in. And she's connecting. All right, Marissa.
Cool. All right. Welcome, everybody. This is our Curriculum Advisory Board meeting for October 26th from 6 to 7:30 today. Obviously virtual. Welcome. We're going to go ahead and begin. So the first thing that we have on the agenda, I have it on the shared screen, but I also have a paper copy. And we're going to go ahead and have the reading and approval of the agenda, which is for today's agenda. And if you want to read it on the shared screen, you can. I don't know if you have a paper copy of your own, but that's why I put it up here, just in case. And is there a motion for approval of today's agenda?
I'll move to approve.
I second.
Judy.
All right. So we'll go ahead and move on to our next part, which is the reading and approval of the minutes from our last meeting, which was on September 21st. I do have that here as well. And so what I will do is I'll just scroll kind of slowly because I don't know if everybody has a paper copy of it. I mean, I do, but I don't know if everyone else does. And so we're just scrolling through and approving from the minutes from last time we met. It wasn't last week, but last time that we met. All right. And so here they are. So it was from September 21st, which was a Monday, 6 to 7:30. And I'm just going to go ahead and scroll through. So there is technically 3 pages of this. Let me know if I'm going too fast. My students would let me know. I'm just letting you know. Right. And we good there? I'll keep moving. Right. And keep moving. And we're on our topics of review. And then we have our good of the order. And our last part are the adjournment. Okay, is there a motion to approve our minutes from September 21st?
I'll move to approve. This is Judy.
Okay. All right. Go back to our agenda. Okay. All right. So our next part is to review the mission statement and purpose of our committee. I'll go ahead and read that. The mission statement is here at the top. I do have it on the shared screen as well. All right. So mission statement is to advise the school board by recommending approaches to obtaining improved student achievement for all students through a coherent, rigorous academic course of study that provides the tools necessary to succeed in today's society. Emphasis will be placed on the dynamic development of a K-12 curriculum within a safe environment, leading to both career and technical majors, the methods of instruction used to implement it, and the assessments of its effectiveness, together with a complementary professional development program to support it. Okay. We good to move on to our public comment? Is there any public comment either about our mission statement or just any other comment? Okay. All right, so we have a motion to move on to our next presenter, which is Mary Fisher. We're ready to move.
Good evening, everybody. It's good to be here. First of all, I want to thank all of the members of the advisory committee for taking the time out of their busy schedules to bring their perspective to us so that we have a more diverse and comprehensive understanding from the community perspective, from the family perspective, and from the school perspective about what is needed for us to support our staff in achieving academic success. So some good news that you probably, many of you probably already know, and maybe some of our academic people will be discussing, but our enrollment has increased by 10,585 kids. And that means that many students have returned to face-to-face from Home Connect, from Lee Virtual School, and from homeschool. So I think that's good news for the kids and the teachers. And I think that it'll provide us an opportunity to do an even better job as we continue to comply with the requirements for sanitation and social distancing and mask wearing to keep our whole Lee County School District families safe. I want to say that this is Red Ribbon Week, and that's why I'm wearing a red shirt. I am a member of Drug Free Lee, and they provide free prevention programs to our school district students with the support of the community. We just recently received a $1,000 donation from the Wawa Foundation. We have very active partnerships with our law enforcement agencies, the Lee County Sheriff's Office, the Cape Coral Police Department, Fort Myers. And so we really value that because that helps us to provide for the safety of our students and to provide instruction and education, not only to our students, but to our families and our staff members. One of the partnerships that we have with law enforcement and the Parks and Rec Department is that starting in January, they'll be continuing the Teen Driver Program, which gives high school students the opportunity to take courses in driving, as well as concurrently the rapid course in self-defense, which is really important for not only our young people, but I'm going to take it myself because it sounds very interesting. They're also providing youth basketball programs for youth at risk. So our community partnerships, beginning with our own Lee County Schools Foundation, really supports us getting the kids ready and keeping them engaged so that they can be ready to learn and that we can achieve our mission, which is that every student will achieve their maximum personal potential. I want to just remind everybody, if you haven't already, vote, please, next week. And we're looking forward to following the elections. Our school board will be reorganizing and we'll be taking into consideration many different things, including the way we work to support the school district and our very hardworking staff. So again, I want to thank everybody, and I'm excited that Lori Brooks will be with us this evening because I'm a big participant in the community in the wellness and mental health arena, and so I'm very excited to hear what she has to say. They do an amazing job in that department. And with that, I won't take any more time because I think my 5 minutes is probably over with. So let's get on with the meeting. Thank you, Marissa, and everyone.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ms. Oliveto, and I will put up the timeline as well on the shared screen for our textbook adoption. Here we go.
Awesome. Thank you, Marissa. So we just wanted to take a minute to update you based upon the information that Lori Houchin had shared at our last meeting. Tomorrow night, we are getting ready to kick off our textbook adoption with our teachers. Our secondary 6 through 12 teachers will be getting together virtually to go over their best standards training so they can get familiar with those standards. And then on Wednesday night, we will be hosting that same training with our elementary teachers. So that's where we're at right now. All of our committee members have accepted and been reached out to and welcomed. We are still looking for additional members from this committee though. So if anybody on this committee would like to join us for our textbook adoption, if you would please either in the chat, you can chat it to Dr. Quisenberry, myself, or Lori Houchin, your name, and we can get you up to speed. We are adopting K-12 ELA and reading. So we do have a total of 5 committees. So it would be awesome to have a couple more representatives from this group as we bring this. This is an item we bring before the board every year. Even if you are not able to join on the committee, what we have coming up very soon is our Publishers Showcase. So our Publishers Showcase is going to be happening in early November. Marissa, if you would scroll down just a little bit more. Awesome, thank you. It'll be happening November 12th. So we will make sure that everybody on this email group gets a copy of that. And since we're going virtual, it's going to be very different this year. You will be able to log in from your own home, hop into the publishers, see what they have to offer, and it's going to be open from 4 to 7. So if you can't join us until about 6:30, that's a-okay. And then after those presentations in early December, this is when we'll move into the publishers actually presenting to our teachers. So the 12th is open to everybody. December will be only to the committee members. And then by the end of December, we will have recommendations. So we will come back to this group in December, early January with where we are so we can share that information. So we just want to be able to provide with you the timelines and where we're at right now. And thank you for those of you jumping in the chat box, and I see Lori responding. So we will make sure you guys get all the information. We truly appreciate you being part of the process with us. Marissa, back to you.
Alrighty, so it looks like what's up next on our agenda, I'm gonna pull that back up again. All right, so it looks like we are now up to our social emotional learning presentation from Lori Brooks.
Thank you so much, Marissa. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and with my colleague, Mary Lynn Rodriguez. Together, we serve the continuum of K-12 school counseling services, and we also do mental health services. So thank you for the opportunity to present this evening and to spend some time with you. I am going to share my screen very briefly and get my PowerPoint up. Okay, sorry, it'll just be a moment. Okay, do you see my full screen now is PowerPoint? Okay, great, thank you. All right, again, my name is Lori Brooks, the Director of School Counseling and Mental Health Services. And I just have to say Candace Alivedo was one of my students because I am old and I've been doing this a long time. This is my 29th year in the school district, and I'm also a product of the school district as a student, graduating from Cape Coral High School many decades ago. Shout out to Dr. Spiro, K-Pi graduate as well. I just have to call everybody out tonight. And Mary Lynn, I would like you to introduce yourself as well, if you don't mind, please, and a little background.
Sure. I'm Mary Lynn Rodriguez. I'm the coordinator for school counseling services. So I oversee the K-8 school counseling. Unfortunately, I didn't have the pleasure to attend, but my siblings did attend Lee County schools. I went to school in Wisconsin, but like I said, they attended. So we, our family is very much into Lee County school system, and I have 2 sisters that teach in the district as well. So, and I was not Candace's teacher. Sorry, I had to say that. But anyways, it's a pleasure to work in the district and a pleasure to be here to present tonight.
Awesome. And thank you for doing that, Mary Lynn. And one of the items we would like to start with today is our attitude of gratitude. As all of us on this Zoom meeting understand, This has been a year of challenges from March on for all of us. And as we were heading into summer and into this school year, we knew that this was a marathon and that this was going to take some time for us to work through everything that's been going on. And all of us that are parents, grandparents, educators, we all know that our kids are at the forefront of everything we need to focus on daily. And for us as adults to maintain regulation so that we can be present and calm for our children and our students. One of the things that Mary Lynn and I have talked through that have been exceptionally helpful for us is really focusing each day on one thing we're grateful for. So Mary Lynn's going to take us through just a quick 30-second activity to get us started this evening to shake off the day and really get into our presentation.
Okay, so we just want to just like kind of settle yourself for just a second and just think about one thing that you are grateful for today. If you kind of look through your day, throughout your day, just one thing at least that you're grateful about. And Lori's going to set the timer. And if you feel, if you're willing to share, please feel free to put in the chat box what you find grateful for today. We'll share a few of those. Great to be alive. Okay. Awesome. Grateful for a wonderful team. People's health, family and friends, faith. A home, having a home, colleagues. Love it. New babies. Grateful for new babies and giggling babies and husbands. Okay. Community members and education. So when we take those 30 seconds to kind of look at our day, if we think about that for just a moment, where does our perspective change? It brings us back to kind of look at things in a different light. So it's kind of what we're just having you walk away from here, is just looking at things in a more of a positive, more of a grateful mindset. And I'll let Lori lead us to the next slide.
Thank you, Mary Lynn. Tonight's objectives, and we watched your last meeting to really understand the context of the discussion, and we like to know our audience a bit before we present. And we really can't discuss social emotional learning without talking about the whole continuum of mental health. And around student SEL and mental health, we also have to talk about how we're training those of us around us, not just our students, but also our teachers and all of our support staff and our administrators. So you're going to leave our presentation this evening with not only an understanding of what social emotional learning initiatives we are working through in the district for students, but also how are we working through COVID-19 and returning our students to school. And this isn't just the first few weeks, it's this entire school year. And actually we're on a multi-year focus for what has been happening for our students, which is many and varied since March, all the way through a return to school in August. And then as we see in November, and then again in January, as our students come off of Lee Home Connect, Lee Virtual School and homeschooling, hopefully to eventually reunite in a face-to-face setting. And then our training for school staff that has been ongoing, but how did we also shore that up for COVID-19 response? And then our continuum of school-based mental health services. And tonight, of course, we want to know what you think. So during the presentation, if we could frame this in thinking through as you experience some of these initiatives, suggestions that you as a committee may have for the district related to social emotional learning and supports for our students. Because that's really important. As a committee, your work drives a lot of what our district work looks like. And so really, as we talk about things we have in place, what are additional supports that you think our students need? And we're going to ask you for that feedback at the end of our presentation. And of course, any questions you might have. This was just a cartoon that we really feel identifies our students even prior to COVID. You know, our kids come in with emotional backpacks, and so do our adults. We all have our emotional backpack, and every day that looks different. Some days it's 10 pounds, other mornings it's 20, and still other mornings it's maybe 2 to 5 pounds. But with those different weights and things happening in each of our lives, this really is the premise of the way we want to approach not only our students, but also our fellow workers, adults, parents. We're all doing the best we can with what we have. And sometimes it's hard to look beyond the behavior and look for the reason or the function behind the behavior, even with adults. So Mary Lynn's going to take us through kind of what our needs are and how we couch social emotional learning into Maslow and Bloom's taxonomy.
Okay, so as you look, I know many of us are very familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but when you look at this, you look at the bottom part of it, the bottom 4 sections of that pyramid, and it's physiological needs and basic needs. We really just identify those as deficiency needs, meaning that when those are deficient, it becomes a distraction. It could become a way of seeking that. For instance, if a student is sitting or anyone is sitting and they're hungry, think about when you're hungry or when you maybe need to even use the restroom, that's a basic need. You become distracted. If you're in a training, if you're in trying to attend to something else, it's very much distracting. So those physiological needs and those basic needs are deficiency needs, meaning that if they are deficient, once again, then it becomes a distraction and impedes our progress into moving on to the next level. We look at that very top piece where it's a self-actualization, it's self-fulfillment needs. That's more of a growth need. We all have that need and that desire to grow as human beings, but for us to be able to be our best and to self-actualize, we need to have those basic physiological needs met to progress. So I just want to highlight, if we look at that very top piece of that pyramid where it says self-actualization, thank you, Lori, achieving one's full potential, that little piece there rings a bell to our district's mission statement and what we do. And that's where we're focusing. That's where we're looking at the social emotional needs. That's why we're looking at how to address that and embed this and help these students move forward as we address their physical and basic needs as much as we can and support with the families, and then help them go beyond that and reach their highest potential. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so we look at that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and what does that transition to in the educational setting? What does that really look like? So what does physiological and safety needs look like in the school setting? Well, obviously we take breaks sometimes for snacks in the classroom or lunch, breakfast. Those are basic physiological needs. The sense of safety and creating that free from bullying, free from harsh punishment, restorative practices, those type of things, PBIS within our schools. Those create that sense of safety within our school, that consistency, that common language within our school setting. Then we move on to what is the relationship building and love, where are the friends that they build, that sense of community, that sense of connection, sense of belonging that a student is able to establish within our school setting, as well as the relationship with their teachers is very important. School administrators, counselors, and personnel, all of that affects that relationship building. Not only are we modeling that for our students and helping them develop that way through modeling, but them having and forming that relationship is going to affirm that sense of self and meet those basic needs once again. Well, we take that from there once those needs are met and they're able to bloom, no pun intended, but they're able to move forward. Their self-esteem is affirmed, their self-respect, again, modeling those things, again, teaching them and providing them that foundation. Then they're able to move forward and to learn, and they're able to then be able to, again, self-actualize. When they're free from stressors or as much as it can be, and when they're able to be curious, they're able to increase their memory, their short-term memory is not affected. So this pyramid just looks at how Maslow and those needs build on each other so that then we can provide that safe environment for our students to literally bloom, but bloom as well. Thank you, Lori. Next one. Thank you. This diagram is just really showing us a roadmap of how the social emotional standards, how they are embedded within the family and the community, our district, and in the classroom. How does that work together? Well, we request and we ask, or I should say invite our families to be a part of that. It's a home and school connection that exists there, that we work together to help our students become the best that they can be. I'll go into a little bit more in the next slide. SEL, next one, thank you. Looking a little bit deeper into that roadmap that we just talked about, what does that look like if we pick that apart? If we pick it apart, well, our family and community parent resource nights, giving parents resources, family nights, providing that student-led conferences, those are opportunities to have that discussion with families to re-emphasize what does social emotional look like in our school buildings, what do we employ in our buildings to help. I saw a question pop up, I'll get that in one moment. Didn't want you to think I didn't see it. And then policies and practices. Each one of our schools has the ability, the flexibility to choose the social emotional program that they would like to have in their school system. In their school building, excuse me. And when they do that, then they choose what works best for them and the mechanism that they're going to actually embed that within their curriculum and within their school day. But we also have policies and practices that support that social emotional learning, like the PBIS, I mentioned that a little bit earlier. Our code of conduct supports that same growth, that same, the same mindset of moving forward, restorative practices, recognitions that we have throughout our school buildings, and then of course the MTSS and interventions. So these, what are social emotional standards? So social emotional standards are standards that address the development. If we look at the center of the circle that's on your screen right now, you see self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, social awareness, and relationship skills. Those are the 5 standards for social emotional learning. So when we look at those, we look at ways of how we can help build those skills within our students. What type of lessons can we provide? What type of environment can we provide to reinforce those same lessons that we're teaching our students? Okay, all right.
So Mary Lynn just covered those 5 core areas for social emotional learning. And around that, you will see the deep blue circle for SEL curriculum and instruction, which is what our schools are engaged in. And that's this dark blue curriculum box on the right-hand side, where Mary Lynn said that schools have the power of choice. Because as we all know, our district is very diverse and each school has different approaches and culture. And so the principals and their teams can choose the curriculum that works best for them. And then school-wide practices and policies, like Mary Lynn articulated with PBIS, our code of conduct, restorative practices, et cetera, further shore up and then surround that instruction and the family and community partnerships. So it really does take the school system, our policies, our families, it takes everybody to really hone in on social emotional learning for our students. And so we started with school initiatives because we now want to move into our district initiatives. So you can see where each school is different. However, they're all working on systems and curriculum. And then our district initiatives that support deeper social emotional learning and also building resiliency and coping skills is really through our Wellness Wednesdays. So Wellness Wednesdays is kind of our new branding this year for our required health instruction in the areas of mental and emotional health, substance use and abuse health education, and child trafficking prevention. Now, we know that health standards are much more comprehensive than these 3 areas. However, the State Board of Education determined that because health education can vary in each district, it can also vary depending on K-5, 6, 8, 9 through 12. They said these 3 areas are those that students need annual developmentally appropriate instruction every single year, and schools need to focus on this across the state. So for mental and emotional health, this is grades 6 through 12. It's 5 hours of annual developmentally appropriate instruction that progress each year. Our younger students in K-5, their focus is on social emotional learning. Now in 612, we don't leave that behind, but we add in the mental and emotional health because that's when students obviously are more developmentally able to identify some of the topics that we cover. Substance use and abuse health education, we do that in K-12. And so with the help of Leisha Roy, who I like to call our master teacher in health education, we were able to develop and identify, especially in K-5, what does substance use and abuse look like? And a lot of this is more about what's the difference between candy and medication. It's kind of medicine cabinet safety, because while we all may use child-proof locks, kids have a tendency to get into things, and we want them to maintain their safety and understand what the difference is between, for instance, pill medication and a Tic Tac, okay, for lack of a better analogy. Now with child trafficking prevention in K-12, those of you that have studied child trafficking know that Florida has very high rates of child trafficking. And from Miami all the way through, we're kind of in that corridor, Miami through I-75 North, that's where a lot of our trafficking will take place. And so we need to keep our students safe. And this also is developmentally appropriate. In grades K through 5, we talk more about safety and who's your using your authoritative voice when you're uncomfortable, who's your circle of trust, who to talk to, who's your person to go to if you're feeling uncomfortable about the way an adult might be near you or talking to you, etc. All the way through in middle and high school, really teaching students how to tap into their self-confidence. How do you present yourself? How do you value you and have self-worth? Because as we know, those who would like to engage an adolescent in trafficking will groom them, and they will look for the student who lacks self-confidence or any kind of systems of friends or family, and they'll start to tap into that and manipulate that. So that's where our developmentally appropriate instruction really takes center stage. So the mental and emotional wellness covers all of the areas you see on your screen. And this actually, I think the State Board of Education did a phenomenal job identifying these areas. And you might say, okay, why? And if you're not saying why, I'm going to tell you why. It's because our education of teachers covers exactly this. In our youth mental health first aid, we educate teachers, support staff, from bus drivers, cafeteria, our custodial staff. We even will educate community members, parents, and youth group workers. We'll educate anybody on youth mental health awareness. It's a phenomenal training, and it covers all of these topics about how to identify in an adolescent signs and symptoms, what's typical, what may be atypical, but also how do you come alongside an individual and talk to them without being preachy, teachy, or overbearing, because as you know, as adults, sometimes our teenagers look at us that way, even when we really mean the best. So, all right. And then I know you were also wondering, what else are we doing, especially for COVID-19? And Mary Lynn is going to cover the very special planning that we did. We are blessed to have a chief academic officer that understands the whole child. It's not just engaging in learning. It's about removing barriers so there's a readiness to learn. And we were really empowered to engage in this work as we returned to school and planned for that under his leadership. And so Mary Lynn, would you like to go ahead and cover our special supports?
Sure. Okay. So as we know, there has been a great effect of COVID-19 and just this whole unprecedented time on our students and families' mental health. So because when we were returning back to school, we didn't really know what to expect. We knew that we would have families that maybe have lost loved ones. We knew that we would have families and students that maybe their parents lost their job, financial situation may be more difficult, then maybe as a result were homeless, but we had to prepare and look at everything. Like Lori said, look at the whole child and all of the pieces to it. Can you go to the next slide, please?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I'm jumping around. I was reading the chat box. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. So what we did was we came up with a tool. You see the first bullet there, transition back to school toolkit. And that toolkit really just took all those components and those pieces that we could support our teachers and our schools with to better prepare them for when we had our students come back to school, our students and their families. So what we did, that toolkit included SEL lessons, relationship building lessons for teachers, so that they could really focus on that to build that connection, that sense of belonging, that community. We talked earlier about the Maslow's hierarchy of need and those basic needs that we have. And that really just feeds into that piece of it. We want to address those so that later on that student is better ready to learn, and just help them all the way around, and then provide them with community resources that are available. With COVID, there were other resources available within the community. So we created a community list of resources that was also available in that back to school toolkit. It also looked at health and safety was another component. Attendance, how to look at attendance. SEL, just overall, we reintroduced the SEL standards within that toolkit. Look at the mental health resources that were available. Things shifted in the mental health world a little bit to be more telehealth. So putting those, the shifts that happen within our community with the mental health and providing all of that to our families and students. And then mentoring programs. We even had a piece in there about mentoring programs because we wanted to support, yet again, in the school setting, create that extra support within the school. This was shared with teachers, admin, school counselors, or school-based mental health professionals, and it was available to them so that they can better prepare and welcome our students back with more resources. Okay. In addition, I'm sorry, Lori, I'll let you go on to the next piece of it. I don't want to talk into your section.
You're absolutely fine, Mary Lynn. Our CARES Act funding relates to two initiatives that we will be launching Q2. Small group counseling, and we're going to talk a little bit about our mental health tiered initiatives. And I saw in the chat box earlier some discussion about tier 2 and tier 3 supports, and we're going to talk about that overall continuum. And you heard Mary Lynn talk about the back to school toolkit and focusing on creating felt safety. We had a big focus on the first 30 days. What do our students need to feel safe, even when sometimes we had more question marks than we had more questions than answers. And so we were trying to really make sure they had a healthy anxiety reduction approach to coming back to school. But the CARES Act funding is for what do we do for some students that need more as a result of whatever they've been experiencing due to COVID-19. So the small group counseling will be a CBT small group called Cognitive Behavioral Therapy. Many of you may have heard of that. If students screen with anxiety, symptoms of anxiety, and they would be appropriate with parental permission to engage in our small group counseling, we will be providing that through our school-based mental health professionals. Those are our school counselors, social workers, nurses, and our licensed mental health professionals. We also developed in partnership with Salus Care. Thank you on October 6th to our school board at their action meeting approving our agreement with Salus Care to develop community family response teams. And so through our CARES Act funding, we fund those teams. They're being staffed right now. And those teams are for short-term, about 6 months of support for families that may find themselves in need of resources and also counseling. So there's 2 team members per team, and we have 1 team in each zone. So we'll have a West Zone, South Zone, and East Zone CFRT. They will cross zones. If the demand in one zone is larger than in another, they will work with that. But this will be a referral for families that have experienced stressors directly related to COVID-19. And it could be for some stopgap family assistance for to cover them so they don't become homeless while we connect them to a longer term solution. But partnered with those resources will be the ability for counseling for family and students. And this is entirely free. This will be 100% CARES Act funded. So if you're uninsured, underinsured, we're going to provide those services through these teams. So I'm big on watching my time, and we have 12 minutes left. And Mary Lynn's going to talk about staff training briefly, and then I'm going to touch just on our continuum of mental health, because you may be wondering, well, what about students who need more? We talked about our SEL and how we're laying the foundation, but what do we do if that foundation, it has some little stress fractures in it? What do we do for those students? So Mary Lynn's going to cover how we train our staff, and then I'll cover the general continuum of services, and then we'll ask for your feedback and questions.
Okay, so as Lori mentioned earlier, she talked about youth mental health first aid. This is one of our one of the trainings that we provide to all district staff. We're focusing really on instruction. It's what our state and state statute is written in there that this is the training that's designated to provide to all of our instructional staff. So that is our focus. We have other members as well. And through a grant that we have, we've provided other staff training in that same area. We actually trained our SROs that were Sheriff's Department employees last school year in January. So we trained 70 SROs as well as training instructional staff. And then with our grant schools, we really focused on even beyond the classroom. We invited secretaries, safety and security members, cafeteria workers, other staff members as well, so that it covered the gamut within the school. So that's a youth mental health first aid training, which really heightens a person's awareness, really helps them enhance their noticing skills and mental health first aid, things that might be abnormal to, or atypical, I should say, to a student's behavior. Because if you know a student over a time period and then something just seems atypical, that's going to raise your eyebrows a little bit. So this kind of helps you gauge whether that should be something typical or atypical, especially in adolescence. And then we have the cognito, at-risk mental health awareness and trauma-informed practices. These were offered at the beginning, they're still offered throughout this whole school year, but these are 2 trainings that we have available to all staff, bus drivers, cafeteria, all the way, everyone in the district, employed by the district is able to take this training. Each one of these focuses on the topic, the trauma-informed practices and the mental health awareness, to just, again, provide that layer of enhancing our awareness skills to help us see where a student might be in need, or families at times coming to us and parents coming to us that might be in need, and helping connect them to resources in our community. And then in addition, we provided training in the summer to all of our school-based mental health professionals. We offered them the trust-based relational intervention, and we also invited administrators in the beginning of the summer as well to attend a small series of that. We provided them a 3-hour training, and so that they could be better prepared as well coming back into the school year. Again, not knowing what was going to come before us at the beginning of the school year, but just to help them support their schools, their students, and their staff. And then again, our school-based mental health professionals. The trust-based relational intervention, I'm going to tell you what the 3 topics that really focuses on, because that's not as familiar as just saying mental health awareness or trauma-informed practices. But what that training really focuses on is connecting, empowering, and correcting. And it's finding ways to do that with empathy and really tying a student in with correcting. And not, when we say correcting, we may have a tendency to go to discipline or to look at that, but how do we do that and do that with a sense of empathy? Okay.
Thank you, Mary Lynn. Another training we provide is crisis prevention and intervention training. Unfortunately, when the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas school shooting happened, they had to call in teams from across the state, and the Prepare Crisis Intervention and Recovery model is the role of our school-based mental health professionals. And that is a common language when you have to do any type of grief support or trauma support. It could be a major event like the MSD high school shooting. It could be something like the loss of a student or a death of a teacher. And so Mary Lynn Rodriguez and I went over to Marjorie Stoneman and we helped them reopen the schools, and we served on their very large intervention team. And when we were done with that service, we really came back with a conviction that our district needed to be a prepared district. And so we've invested in this common intervention and training, but also the top bulleted item there is the crisis prevention and preparedness, which is comprehensive school safety planning. And we've offered that training as well. And then we focus in our world on the response. And that is, it's all the prepare model. It's a very uniform model, and it's how you work individuals who've been exposed to trauma and grief, how you work them through the processing of that in an appropriate way, and the support of that and the recovery. So all of this that we've discussed so far, which is really just to review, and then we're going to cap off with the school-based mental health services. And we have talked about schools with the power of choice for the social emotional learning curriculum that best suits them. We've talked about district structures in place, like our code of conduct, restorative practices, PBIS, MTSS. We've talked about those structures. We've talked about the fact that families are critical and the community to this learning for our students. And then we talked too about how do we train our students and educate them even beyond SEL into some of the other health instruction topics, which further shores up and builds their learning. And how do we train our staff? And now we're going to talk about the full continuum of school-based mental health services in the minutes we have left. So when we talk about school-based mental health services, you'll notice it goes from prevention all the way through who needs more when we assess and intervene, and then sometimes in the case of a loss or grief, a postvention service. Now, postvention can also refer to students who have been in treatment or a Department of Juvenile Justice facility that come back to school, and how do we support them? Mental health is essential for safe and healthy learning environments. We need to support our students' social emotional needs, identify and respond to any mental health challenges, and of course, always promote their academic and personal success. Ideally, we're a system of care. We dovetail with community-based services. So schools, families, and community-based services develop a comprehensive system of care. If we act in isolation, we will continue to achieve outcomes that are less than ideal for our students. This is our Florida Triangle. And I think it was Lori Houchin in the chat box earlier was describing MTSS. And our mental health really follows that same supportive base where all kids receive universal prevention. And then when we have students that need additional support, we provide that in Tier 2. And in Tier 3, which should be a low percentage of our students, we are intensively individualizing support. So our basis for school-based mental health is really increasing protective factors for students and decreasing barriers to learning. So you've probably seen this before. We always want to encourage healthy and safe behavior. Student engagement is critical. Social learning and behavior helps them get along with others and like and be liked. Of course, all of this has to occur in a positive school climate that encourages students to want to come to school where they feel safe and free from harassment, teasing, and any other type of things that may impact their self-esteem negatively. When we work on all of these protective factors, we decrease our tardies and absentees, our discipline issues, our inappropriate behaviors, and we decrease our dropout rate and our inappropriate referrals to special education, thereby increasing the graduation rate for on-time graduation. So who provides our services? Well, this is our school mental health team right here. Every school has a mental health team of master's level school counselors, school social workers, school psychologists, and licensed mental health professionals. Our school nurses, while they're not named in state statute as mental health professionals, they are recognized as part of the team because they are an amazing recognition of when students present in the clinic with medical, what could that mean for all the other areas of concern? And they are our eyes and ears as much as our teachers and our support staff in referring concerns to the team. Every school has a mental health team. They meet weekly. They use systematic problem solving. We don't just meet and sit down and talk and try to figure it out. We gather data. We call it collecting the dots and connecting the dots. And then we actually look at, do we need to screen for certain concerns, and parental consent is key to that. And then if we screen for something because it's warranted, excuse me, what do we identify and what's the appropriate level of response? So that's it in a nutshell. And those levels of response could be school-based support. It could be individual counseling at the school from our school mental health professionals. It could be small groups like we talked about with the CARES Act funding, or it could be referrals to therapeutic services. And we continue to leverage our community partnerships because I don't know that we hear this enough, but our community partners came to the table huge. When we ended up with our mental health allocation, which was taking a tragedy such as the Parkland incident and turning it into action. Thank you to our state legislature. Our partners, when we went to them and said, will you partner with us and provide referrals for families and work with us? Their answer was yes, but we're all on the same team, meaning all of the partners you see on this slide and others, they all wanted to work together and not compete for students or for children. And it's been an amazing, like, symbiotic opportunity. We also have our mental health and wellness portal. This is on leeschools.net, and it's a portal that's a 24/7 portal for anybody that wants to just have resources in the middle of the night or during the day. We have a variety of topics on there, and so we encourage you to take a look at it and check out our topical tiles and access to services. And of course, it's a marathon, not a sprint. We've had successes, but we're also mitigating some challenges. We assess our outcomes every year. It's a requirement, and we report to the Department of Education. And we do needs assessments and surveys, and we are an outcome-driven function. Like this has to have outcomes, or we will not continue doing what we're doing. So we follow the cycle of continuous improvement. We continue to develop those community partnerships, and we seek additional funding sources. So there is a question in the chat box, and then I'm going to ask you the question I asked at the beginning. Would you welcome other mental health agencies to support our students and families throughout the district, along with neighboring counties within the state, to assist with COVID-19, trauma preparedness, and crisis? That is an excellent question. It definitely takes a team. And one of the layers for our prepare training is our community partners, because we cannot do this alone as a school system. And if we ever, heaven forbid, have a major incident, we are not going to have enough people. So our community mental health agencies will be critical, and the prepare training that we can engage in for those that volunteer to be on our district crisis team from outside the district will be a key piece. So if you have a mental health background and you're a licensed provider and you're interested in serving, please do get in touch with us. And then also, as far as welcoming other agencies to support our students, we do have nonprofit agencies that we partner with. We're open to conversations. And so by all means, we would really enjoy talking to interested parties. All right, so back to our initial question. Sorry, I have to find my initial question because.
And Lori, as you're looking for your official question, there was also another question in the chat box from Dr. Wilkerson. And this was about to what extent do you see social emotional learning and mental health to be synonymous? And then she's got a couple of some other follow-up in there as well. So I don't know if you would like to address that as a whole with the group.
Absolutely. So Mary Lynn and I talk about this all the time with our mental health coordinator, Sherry Wenzel. In fact, we had a team meeting today, and we were discussing that sometimes individuals will use social emotional learning and mental health synonymously, and they are actually different. Social emotional learning is essential to mental health and wellness. And so it is a foundational piece to the wellness spectrum, right? The continuum that we must provide our children and our adults. We all need continual SEL and reminders of emotion identification, management, and appropriate response, and how to be regulated. A dysregulated adult will not ever be able to help a child stay or reestablish regulation. So we're consistently monitoring and engaging in social emotional learning so that we can be well. And at times though, we go through periods in our life, and with our youth, as they're developing, they'll definitely go through periods where they need more, and they might need some social emotional support. Sometimes that will be mental health support. And that's why our protocols in statute for school-based mental health are so critical, because if we have social emotional support needs, that's where our school counselors and our social workers, they fulfill that through their essential functions of their current roles. If we think we have a mental health need, then we screen to see if it's a mental health need and to what degree. And that's done with parent permission for the screener. And they actually are part of that screening process. And then what level of response is most appropriate for the mental health need. So I hope I explained that. I feel like SEL is the foundation to wellness. And then when we have some challenges in between there, we need to mitigate that. And that's where we get into the upper part of that triangle. Hopefully not that tier 3 intensive, because we're going to end up at the top of that in therapeutic services. Our bread and butter for kids is going to be right there at that bottom level up to level 2. And we want to mitigate and establish for them that wellness spectrum again through our interventions. And some of our kids will need the tier 3, but it's always with the goal of helping them to achieve wellness again.
Is it okay if I speak? I don't know who I'm asking, but Lori, Candace, is it okay if I?
Oh, go for it, Dr. Wilkerson.
Okay, thank you. Apologize. Let me preface this with that I'm speaking as a citizen representative, but it's kind of hard to separate yourself from your professional life. And I was very happy to see that you listed FGCU as one of your partners. So I'm going to just kind of walk that delicate line of wearing both hats right now and tell you that I'm the one that proposed that we talk about SEL, and I don't know what the conversation was after that at the last meeting because I had to sign off. And I did so for somewhat of a selfish reason. And that is that there's a group of faculty at FGCU who are trying to think about what can we do to improve what we do to help you all. And so we're trying to wrap our arms around what is happening in the district in terms specifically of SEL. And I understand that it's related to mental health, but I'm trying to kind of get an understanding of how the unique aspects of SEL are working in the district and how we can be more helpful at FGCU and contributing to that. So what I'm understanding right now from what you've said, and you did a wonderful, wonderful job in this presentation, and I really do want to thank you and let you know how much we appreciate all that you do. And some of my best friends are on the counseling faculty, so I say that with great sincerity. But where I'm stuck right now, and this was kind of the second half of the question, is I get that the 5 chunks of the SEL pie are the standards, and that each school is working on all 5 standards. And each school, I guess, picks one of the curricula that was somewhere in this PowerPoint presentation, which looked to me like there were links to websites about them and that kind of thing. But what does that look like? And is it different in every school? And is it self-directed? And what ties it together? And how is that piece working in schools and with teachers and children? And I don't know if you can answer that or if that's just too big a humongous question, but that's my burning question right now. And as I said, for semi-selfish reasons.
Well, and thank you, Dr. Wilkerson. We appreciate it. And we love our partnership on so many levels with FGCU, from their counseling center and their program to Diane Kratt with teacher preparation. I mean, you guys are really hitting all of the areas we need to. And so we appreciate that tremendously. And I will say that because I directly benefit from that with this district program. So when we look at the CASEL standards for social emotional learning, all of our programs need to align with the CASEL standards. And so that's where the principals have their opportunity to choose from evidence-based curriculum. And so we have documents that they have the CASEL standards, and then also which curriculum align and would be evidence-based choices on that list. So we do provide some guidance. And years ago, as part of a couple of years ago, maybe 2 or 3, as part of their school improvement plan, they identified their social emotional learning program, how it aligned with the CASEL standards. And that was that circular graphic we showed. But those are those evidence-based standards that drive the programs we use, and if they are determined to be evidence-based themselves as programs.
So there's a lot of freedom within the schools to select which curriculum they want and how they want to implement it, and what they want teachers to do, and how integrated it should be, and how they assess the results. And that's all very much school-based and not centralized right now.
They do enjoy the opportunity to select their curriculum, yes.
And that's cool. That's cool. Okay. All right. That really helps me a lot. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And so as we close our part of the presentation, we had asked you for suggestions you may have for the district related to social emotional learning and supports for students. And so as we wrap up, does anyone have any other feedback? And you may ponder this. I have to ruminate on things and let them percolate for a while, but we would love to hear back from you either this evening or through our meeting facilitators, so that we can also engage in the process of continuous improvement with these initiatives. So is there anything in the chat box? Dr. Spiro?
Just want to say, thank you, Mary Lynn. Fabulous overview. This really starts our and meeting the needs of
We can't hear you.
Jeff, we can't hear
We can't
you.
hear you.
Okay. Hear me now?
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay. And so we wanted to present this information because we really wanted the feedback from the group, this group in particular. You've seen what we're doing, but what's missing? So from your perspective, are there initiatives that we should be looking at? Are there areas that we need to enhance? And I think that's what Lori and Mary Lynn were looking at, is what can this group provide to us that says, hey, this is another area of where we need to go, because we know the importance of this entire mental health component.
would it be helpful if we had a follow-up presentation where a couple of schools showcased what they're doing, how they selected a curriculum, what they're doing to implement it, how it's working, what they feel like they need, just to kind of get a more expanded view of the SEL component, because we've had a really, really good overview of the mental health side tonight, but maybe some school perspectives. We've done that with ESOL, for example. Maybe we could do that with the SEL side.
Yeah.
I'm making a note. That's why I'm quiet.
And I can't tell if Dr. Spiro is talking or not. He's on mute now, but.
Well, if this is what the group would like to do, then certainly I think Lori and Mary Lynn, we could talk different levels to say which schools in your experiences are doing things well, providing for the whole child. That way you can see an elementary, middle, and high, and even a special center. That's what this group and Ms. Fisher would like to see. Chris, do you want to facilitate that part of the conversation?
All right. So what I was thinking, our next part, let me just pull up the agenda again, just so that I can have it on the shared screen here. Here we go. All right. So here we go. If there's any more comment on this or feedback, I know maybe the group would like some schools that would come to kind of show what they're doing. Now, I know that our guidance counselor at our school, Veterans Park, and that's where I work, she would definitely be able to show up and kind of show what Veterans Park is doing, because we are K-8. So we could kind of see both elementary and what middle is doing, at least at my site. I don't know if there's another school that's more preferred for representing. I don't know if you guys wanted to, Ms. Brooks and Ms. Rodriguez, if there's like a particular school in mind.
If the committee desires, what we could do is we could talk with a few schools, a few leaders, and have them develop a presentation. Would you be looking for elementary, middle, high school, and special center? And you can give us direction as you discuss. We'll be happy to do that, unless there are schools that the committee prefers to select. But we pretty much could give you, if you wanted us to, some well-developed evidence-based curriculum implementation and varied ones. For instance, if we have a school that's engaging in second step, we probably would want to highlight a different program in a middle, in another school. So you can hear from the leaders why they selected this program, and from some of the teachers that are implementing it, and how it works well with their particular school.
So may I just say, first of all, I want to thank Lori and Mary Lynn for an excellent presentation. And I want to thank Dr. Wilkinson for posing that question and making that suggestion, because I think if we were able to do that, it would really help with the understanding and having a visual of the different curricula being implemented in different ways based on the needs of the school population and the level of development. So I think it's a great idea, and I think it's an opportunity for us to further enhance the importance of the social emotional learning. So, I would definitely be in support of that, but I think we need to see what the majority of the committee desires to do.
I'd like to piggyback on Ms. Fisher and say that I agree with Dr. Wilkerson. The information that Lori and Mary Lynn did present to us was just outstanding. And Lori, you mentioned the whole picture of the child with mental health and learning the social emotional learning. Do you include the family as well? I mean, because they have to learn as well to talk or to explain to their children in order to, move forward in their classroom. Would that be feasible to include that as well? Because you have some parents will say, okay, I know my child has some behavioral problems in school. So of course I'm going to address it with the teacher or the administration. And then when you mention SEL to them, they may not know what that means. Mm-hmm. So that's why I mentioned, will this be included with the family as well so they can understand what's going on?
We could certainly ask each of the schools about, because each of the social emotional learning programs does have a parental component, whether it's a skill builder that they send home or, so each program should have that, at least the ones that Mary Lynn and I have reviewed for Castle Standard Alignment, along with some of our other district team. We could certainly ask the school leaders to consider a family component. Or at bare minimum, they could share some of the family engagement pieces that go along with the lessons and perhaps have some feedback from a parent or caregiver. Yeah. I'll make a note of that as well.
Yeah, that can be, incorporated just to help with the child. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, so it looks like basically for what we would need to decide, what we would prefer as a committee would either have certain schools come and show what they have been doing for SEL and mental health, or the second suggestion would be from Lori Brooks about the differentiated. I guess you guys have some examples already, and we could use that, or we could use that, I should say. What would we prefer as a committee or as a group? Would want certain schools to be contacted and they have a presentation and have a representative come, or do we want something else to come from Lori Brooks and Ms. Rodriguez?
I think the former.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the former. You have someone coming from maybe two schools. You said from veterans. Is that Miss Felt?
Is it what?
Miss Felt? Would that be Miss Cheryl Felt at your school?
Miss Battle, yeah. She's
okay.
our guidance counselor. Yeah, she's a wonderful. I mean, I'm biased, but she's really good.
Yeah. We're biased too. She is wonderful in my opinion, and Mary Lynn's.
She's so cool, calm, and collected. I was like, oh my God, I don't know how she does it. Because there's a lot of kids, kindergarten through 8th grade.
Yeah.
Marissa, do you want to pose the question to the group and take Sophia's suggestion, which was Dr. Wilkerson's, and see if everybody agrees with a thumbs up or a thumbs sideways or a thumbs down, and whether or not they want that as the next topic?
Okay, so do we want this as our next topic, that we do have a representative from other schools come to our next meet to have a presentation of what that particular school is doing in terms of SEL and mental health? If we're good with that, go ahead and give that thumbs up.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
Awesome.
Well, I can't find my thumbs up. So.
Just put your literal thumb.
Thumbs up. There we go.
Okay.
Darn newfangled contraptions. Sometimes I can find it, sometimes I can't.
Okay. All right. The last quick thing that what I would do before we move on to our next steps, and then of course before we move on to our good of the order, is it does kind of follow into maybe having this as another topic for next time that we meet in November. And I'm going to go ahead and put it into the chat. I did email it, but I don't know if everybody actually looked or saw it or whatever. So one of the things that it's a Padlet. So I use Padlet with my students. I am all home connect for this last week, and then I'm going to be blended. So Veteran Spark is 100% blended once Q2 rolls around. And so I'll have both online and in person at the same time. So this is an easy way for me to be able to kind of engage my online students to work collaboratively without actually, being present like that, in person. And so one of the things that I ask, because I've seen it happen quite a bit with being a teacher, and I am also the 7th grade team lead, and I'm the reading department chair.
Oh, that's
And
fun.
a lot of my teachers, a lot of my teachers on my team, some of them are new and they've not been teaching very long, or some of them are older, or we're just kind of all in the same boat, and they're very overwhelmed. And so it's just one of those things where I'm noticing, even with myself, that we've taken on a lot as grown-ups, and sometimes I'm finding that unstable adults cannot have stable learning environments. So there's quite a bit of class coverage. There's quite a bit of critical need for teachers, especially at my site. And so one of the topics that I wanted to bring up for next week is, what can we do for our adults in Lee County in terms of mental health? There's quite a bit of some sad stories that I've heard from our, sometimes it's a newer teacher, sometimes it's not. And so my question was, the reason for this Padlet is, what is one thing that you do as an adult to make sure your own mental health is met? So maybe it's as simple as having a hot cup of coffee, alone or something like that. So I'm just going to go ahead. I know my screen is shared, and I'm just approving the ones that are already written. And then I'll go ahead and I'm going to put one as well.
Marissa, I was thinking too, as you're doing that, and maybe that topic could be something we talk about in a future meeting as well. So we're talking about, here's what we're doing for our kiddos inside of the school district. And then maybe, down the road, maybe in a future meeting, then we talk about what are we doing with the adults. So good question.
All right. I know just as people are still typing, one of the things that I know you guys were talking about, the Snowman Douglas and the tragedy that had happened there. So my family was actually pretty involved in that. My dad is a teacher there. He had Nick Cruz when Nick Cruz was 16 years old. My dad is Jim Gard, and he's a math teacher. He's been at Stillman since 2009, and he's still there. My sister is a music therapist, and she works in Broward County, and she did a lot of the sort of music therapy aspect of it with both the adults and the students there. So even though I wasn't there because I live here, my family was super kind of immersed in all of that. And so it was just kind of interesting. And I do sometimes have to ask my sister what are some strategies that she's used with, grown adults, because she does work with a range of patients. She goes from adults with PTSD who are veterans, and then she has kids as well who have been in trauma. And so there's lots of different ways that she's able to kind of address their needs. But I asked her from like the grown-up perspective. And though she may have not had like a teacher, you know, but like just in her regular everyday round of patients, she did have to interact with teachers who were very traumatized. And then it was like, you know, they still have to come up with learning, and it's, you know, it's about the students, and let's make sure we're meeting our strategies and we're meeting our accommodations and our standards, and we're curriculum, you know, our curriculum. And so they still had to go back to normal school, as normal as it could be, despite that happen, you know, what had happened. And so it kind of made a second round with COVID. And so all right, so what I'm seeing from our Padlet is running while listening to music, deep sea diving, okay, doing anything outside or with water, watching sports. For myself, I have 2 very young kids, so I like to eat a snack at night. I really like chocolate chip cookies and milk. And my kids will not take it from me because they're sleeping. Going to bed and getting a decent hour of much needed rest or sleep. Okay, clean and make sure I come home to a welcoming, non-chaotic house. Yes. Reading and spending time with my family to keep perspective and gain insight. Having a martini. Okay. It's a little different from milk, but yes. And of course, Lori Houchin wanted to have our new members introduce themselves to the group. So any new members, if you want to go ahead and just kind of say who you are and just give a brief intro.
Hi, I'm Pam Jenkins. I work at Lehigh Acres Middle School. I'm the intervention support specialist and equity coordinator there. And I am very interested in curriculum, so that's why I'm here. I'm glad to be a part of the team here.
All right, up next. I think I can't see names.
I can go. Hi, I'm Bethany O'Shea. I teach at Lehigh Senior High School. So also out in Lehigh, I'm a 9th grade English teacher. And before that, I was in New York City for 10 years as a teacher and assistant principal.
All right. Anyone else? I'm not sure. Is there 5 new people? That's what I heard in the beginning.
I can go next.
Okay.
I'm Lisa Renee Johnson, and I'm the Associate Dean of Nursing for Rasmussen University here in Fort Myers. I've been a nurse for about 15 years and been in the Florida region since 2001. I have 2 children who have been in private school, charter school, and Lee Virtual School. So I have quite the knowledge about all the different types, and so I'm excited to join this team. My background, my master's is in nursing education, so I wanted to be able to contribute to not only the community, but because I'm invested with my children as well.
Okay. Anyone else? I think that was it, because I'm recognizing everyone else from the last meeting. All right. Okay. So I think for another meeting, we could discuss sort of the aspect of what can we do for some of our adults that are in our schools. I mean, you know, it's just one of those things where, yeah, we really are very much focused on the students. That is the #1 priority, but we've got, you know, grownups too with their own families, and it's, you know, important to make sure that they're okay. And it's just one of those things. I'm in the weeds, so I see it a lot, and it happens. So anyway, that can be our action and our next steps. If we have a motion to adjourn our meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. All right, anyone else? Do we need a second motion?
I second the motion.
All right. All right, so it looks like that is it. We're meeting adjourned.
Next meeting, November 30th, right?
Yep.
Okay,
November 30th.
Yep, it's down there at the bottom of the thing there.
okay.
Thank you, everyone, and we will be sure to follow up to those of you who have graciously volunteered for the textbook adoption committee. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Sparrow, I was wondering if we should have a planning meeting at the end of this one like we did last year. Oops. Marissa, I wrote you too. Did
I
you
saw.
see that?
Yes, I guess we would get with Helen as well.
Yeah, whoever. I couldn't type them
Okay.
fast enough and I didn't want to send them out to everybody and I wasn't quite sure what to do.
Okay,
I think most people are still on.
yes. So let me, I
Oh,
think
look,
what we can do
Dr.
is,
Spiro's gone.
Okay.
Lori's still here.
Mhm.
Lori is still here. Bethany's still here. Candace is still here.
I'm still here. I'm trying to download the chat.
Ah,
And instead, I downloaded something into the chat. We're all learning.
Sometimes I just copy and paste it into a document, Bethany, and it works.
That's what I should have done. It said it went into a folder. So, save chat. Join folder.
If you could just copy and paste the part of the volunteers, that's what I need.
Okay.
So what I heard for the next meeting and preparation is that we would let Lori Brooks and Mary Lynn, because they, I know at the middle school level, they had to sign up like which classes and that they're doing the social emotional, and there's certain standard programs like that we're using on Wellness Wednesday, but then there are other programs that they are able to select. So she's going to, Lori and Mary Lynn will know how to get a variety of different things so that we don't have the same schools coming and showing. But are you thinking just one at each level? So like that talk both about mental health and social emotional, so that you could see how they're handling both? Or are you just focusing on the social emotional this time?
I think we focused mostly on mental health this time. And I don't know where the conversation went and what the district needs. So I'm kind of at a loss for how to